any slightest slight, I'm going to come after you. It's just the way things have been. But we, NAACP has been working for years and years and years, and a lot of battles we thought we had won back in the 80s and 90s, we're now structurally fighting these same battles now. But our young kids, and probably your young kids, are out there on the streets sounding a change. How our world was 2 weeks ago is a different world now. You're seeing time and time again, white people are coming online and saying things, that they could say 2 weeks ago, nobody paid attention to, and now they're losing their jobs, their businesses are being impacted, they're receiving social media attacks, and as well they should, because the world has changed since that guy put that knee on Mr. Floyd's neck and executed him in the streets in Minneapolis. So we support what you guys are going through. We are going through, in some ways, American racism was like racism in other parts of the world on steroids. They had to invent the N-word for us here and use us as the in order to be able to do the abominable things that they did to us for 250 years as slaves, and then the following 150 years as supposedly free people. And their racism is so. I represent Native American tribes as an attorney, and I tell people the two original sins of this country are are slavery and how we treated the Native Americans, and we've never come to grips with them. So we're seeing the vestiges of this. But my mother used to always tell me that my great grandmother said something that was very interesting, and she said a mad dog was at its worst right before it died. And so I think that Donald Trump and what we're seeing now is that mad dog that we're seeing, have its last vestiges of whatever it is they have, and we're seeing a change, and we're going to see a change because our country has changed years. White people will be in the minority. It will be a majority minority country. Now that biggest minority will be Hispanic, which at times, go back and forth from whether they're with us or not with us. But I think white people have a tendency to kind of put them in the right camp. Same thing when we have a large Asian population, which for years sat around here and thought that they could be white, and then white people reminded them that they're not white. And so now they're starting to become down with the program, especially the Indian and Pakistani population here in our county, which we have an extremely large population. White people are starting to put them in their place. And they don't, it's shocking to them because they think that they're some sort of separate group of people. But,
yes.
If you ain't white, you ain't them. And so it's very interesting to watch them come up and complain about how they're being treated. Now let's kind of laugh at them like, it's your turn. So, welcome to the party. So that's what we're seeing here. And we're working hard to try to turn the tide. Our youth is concerned with this, and you had this probably over in England too. You probably have your normal group of people that the establishment goes to when something goes wrong. They're probably your church people, probably some community leaders, and they always take this conciliatory stance. And my concern is that we're starting to see that now, that the kids are in the street, causing all the havoc and pushing the issue, and now they're going to go to the professional conciliatories, which in a lot of cases is the NAACP, and these organizations will not put the pressure and stand the line because a lot of them receive financial money from the white supremacists and the corporates to toe a certain line, a more conciliatory line. We can't take a conciliatory line right now. We got to take an extremely hard line in any negotiations. And I'm concerned that we may not get that out of some of our leaders. So we want to be sure that the young people are able to impress upon everyone what they want to get done. So that's sort of where we're sitting at right now.
Can I just ask you, Phil, what advice would you give us here in England? Because, and quote me on this because I'm not sure. Why can't we just have the NAACP globally, like in England, in the Caribbean, on every continent? Why can't that be possible?
You know, the one thing about separation and what white people did to us here in the United States is they were able to make us have a lot of divisions within ourselves. So we have a thing we call it color struck over here, where light-skinned black people have years thought that they were a little bit better than dark-skinned black people. And then we have all these various organizations to split us. We got these all sororities and fraternities, which end up sort of splitting us. I'm a Q Psi Phi or a Kappa Alpha Psi, and I'm this fraternity from that. Or I'm in this group, you're not in this group, I'm in this church, I'm in that church. And then you bring in people from the Caribbean. And then, you know, we all black. Y'all got dropped off a little bit earlier than us, but we all in the same boat. But we still fight among and argue among that group, the Caribbean, people from Caribbean, in a lot of ways, you know, blacks in America took a pounding. And, you know, right when we were coming out of in the 50s and 60s getting our rights, they flipped the government program and script to kind of drive the black man out of the black family. And as you all know, most of us that were raised with two family, having that black male and that black female strong raise you, presented a certain background. Well, they kind of ripped that out of us here in the United States in the 60s with these welfare programs. They ripped a lot of our will to work. So the people come from the Caribbean come from these strong family-based groups, and also with a stronger, you know, built-in work ethic. You don't get to eat unless you work. Here, we've kind of got away from that in certain ways. So they look upon people from the Caribbean and even from Africa, look on American blacks as being a little bit lazy and not wanting to push it. And I can understand exactly what they're saying because, Al and Mo, we all talk and we all know what the deal is on a lot of this. But we've got to figure a way to get around these divisions and to make things happen. And so for us, the lesson I believe we can give to people in England is that they need to stick together like glue. That, you know, don't let your divisions get you twisted. And also to organize yourselves as best you can, because a lot of you are probably out here fighting these individual fights. And it's always better when you have a group of people. And that's why I love what you guys are doing now, because it gives support. That young lady who spoke earlier was just heartbreaking listening to her. But I believe she gained support from this group. And that's what you need to do, organize and get your groups together and make sure your message is coherent.
Thank you for that, Phil. That's very important, and that is something that we keep making. It's noted in this building of a community cohesion, that it's division, and we're kind of like fed up with it. And myself, we was having a conversation before. You know, what's the point of having all this setting up of all these little affiliations when we can come together as one? We all got one aim and end goal, but everybody wants to be a leader, and we need to change that mentality, because not everybody is a born leader. Some people may have the vision, some people may have the finances, some people may have the resources. Do you know what I'm saying? But everybody, we got this mentality that you know, it's selfish and it's greed. Like, we want to do it single-handedly. So therefore, there's all these little groups doing exactly the same thing. Even with these platforms, everybody is doing the same thing. Why can't we? What is the one reason why we can't come together as a collective? We've all got the end goal, but the problem is leadership. Everyone wants to be a leader. And there's a gentleman here we've got from the Manhood Academy, and he has ethos where he talks about the rites of passage, where they say, heal the boy and the man will appear. And I think it's heal the woman and the woman will appear as well. I think it works both ways. I'm going to hand you over to Jay from Manhood Academy. And There's a lot of background noise there.
Mute it.
Yeah. And Jay, can you just talk about, you know, just say what you guys do?
Yeah. Blessings, love, and light to everyone. Thank you for having me on this platform, and Scotty, you know, and everyone that's involved in it. Yeah, literally, the understanding of what we do at Manhood Academy is based on a few core principles, you know. So firstly, we make sure we're a work in progress as the elders who are teaching the young boys. You know, it's not a place of dictatorship, you know. And I personally went to the Gambia and done my rites of passage, and not all of the brothers have done the same experience in the same place, but we've all understood the principle and the importance of having a rites of passage. So again, like we're leading from examples as well as being students to, you know, the youngsters, because we're not coming from a place of this is the only way to be. You know, we're giving them that energy where they have the power to also teach us. And I feel that that alone is something that can empower the younger generation to want to step up as leaders. And some of our core values is we deal with introspection. So, you know, introspection simply meaning, you know, looking from within, you know, checking yourself before we're out there checking someone else. And in our culture as a people, very rarely do we do that. You know, it's very easy to see the faults that's over there with that man and that woman, but, you know, we deal with how we're going to teach these youth to be better than us or to work together if they've got a vision of the problems out there instead of, you know, the saying is, whatever I see wrong in the world, I will go and fix within myself. So whatever I see wrong in the world, I will go and fix within myself. So there's a lot of things that is happening externally and we can all relate to these things, but it's when we take accountability of where is it happening in my life? Where is it happening in my circle, in my family? So introspection, integrity, you know, and these are work in progresses. So they're not things that we can say, yeah, you know, we're never gonna fall short on. So we allow these young boys to see the relatability of our flaws. You feel me? So again, never a dictatorship. And also understanding synergy, like the brother was speaking earlier, like, you know, not everyone who looks like us thinks like us. And that's one of the biggest things that we need to understand as a people right now. For example, today, I'm going to give you two quick examples. I was in Hackney and I saw two brothers, you know, and the synergy was we connected eyes, you know, we gave the, you know, the black salute. Yeah, I said, Black Lives Matter, brother. I said, course. And then one of them looked over and saw a sister. She had the baby in her hand and she was trying to close the boot and maneuver a few bags at the same time. Yeah. And they shouted out, yo, sis, we got this. It's two of them. They went over, I went over. There was enough that all three of us helped her out, right? So that synergy that's happening right now amongst Black people is gonna grow if we all start looking to support each other in any situation, right? That was one example. And the example of what I was saying just now about not everyone who looks like us speaks like us. I went to somewhere else and I saw a sister at the reception and I said to her, love, Black Lives Matter, sis, because that's my little energy that I want to put out there. And she says, all lives matters. And I thought, oh, okay. And I said, I've done that. And she knew from that like, you didn't need to go there, sis. You know what I mean? We all know all life matters, you know? And she said, but I hear you. I said, okay, cool. I didn't, you know, belittle her, but that's an example for me. You know, we've got internal issues where some of us are going to be standing up for master, you know? This is how much conditioning we've had. You know, that Stockholm syndrome. There's so much things that we have to start understanding before we even say, yeah, let's run together. Because not everyone who looks like me, I'm going to be running with, to be honest with you. Not everyone who looks like me, I'm going to be saying I can vouch for, because we haven't got an African mind as a collective. So synergy, when we're speaking to these young boys, no matter what they're dealing with outside or in their different areas and their postcodes, when they're in Manhood Academy, we say, listen, have a look around. This brother over here, he's from this area. You're from that area. Outside of this room, you two wouldn't even be talking.
Mm. Yeah.
It would be a problem, right? As being a people. So yeah, there's so much more. So it all depends on specifically what you want me to touch on, but I don't want to, go away
Oh,
from.
that's fine. It was really, most importantly, the actual transformation of how the Manhood Academy uses this rites of passage
Yeah.
in your project, which is very important as well. But in the same token, you touched on the mindset of people, and this is something that myself and Scott are really, big on. And that's where I want to introduce Dr. Angela and Dr. Otis, because I want to talk about exactly how we tackle the systemic oppression. And what can you tell us as psychologists about the ramifications of oppression, knowing the mental scars that will come from this present, era of post-protest and looting?
So before we get started, Miss Diana, I just wanted to send all the positive energy to everybody that was here before. We will not be denied. Our voices will not be silenced. I have to give a special shout out to my sister Gemini. I don't know what you were saying, but I felt all that energy coming through. My husband and I called each other. We said, Sister Gemini was not going at all. So I felt all of that. So I had to say that just because the energy shifted, or it tried to be shifted, but it's not going to happen, because we're going to continue to do what we're doing and put positive energy into the world. But to your point, I think it's important that we do just what we're doing right now. We had a conversation last night, Dr. O and I did. We were talking to college kids, and there were two gentlemen on there, one Caucasian, one African American, and the Caucasian gentleman says, I'm here because I want to stand up for my friend. I don't know what to do always, but I'm willing to learn, and I just want him to know that I love him and I stand with them. Well, then the other gentleman, who was his friend, started to cry on the platform, and then he started to cry, and then other people started to cry. I think there are people who understand what this means. And so what we brought to the space is that oftentimes all we want is for people to acknowledge what's going on, say something, use their voices in rooms where we don't necessarily always have our feet. And so we got to talk about it, but it is going to be a collective. To the gentleman's point that spoke earlier, there are lots of ways where we are divided into, multiple groups, but we also have the ability to choose, because the mission is bigger than me. The mission is bigger than one person. And so we just got to keep, this dialogue going about the importance of the collective mission and finding ways to bridge those gaps. Because after that last experience, I called my husband and I was like, are you good? And he said, I'm good. Are you good? So the ability to check in with another person, right? Speak your truth, helps a whole lot to deal with some of the scars that we continue to take on.
I think another thing that we're talking about is the fact that just the exposure to that did not set anybody off. That means that we're become numb to it, and that's not okay.
You didn't see me, Dr. O.
Ma'am?
You didn't see me, Dr. O. It kind of got me, but keep going.
Well, I'm just saying, the thing is that yes, we can keep going and stuff, but any type of exposure to stress can cause grief, and it can cause trauma. And so, just as we spoke last night, the importance of grief is to be able to get through all the cycles of denial, anger, bargaining, depression, just so we can get to acceptance. but we will never allow ourselves to be accepted, to accept that type of treatment, period. And so we're stuck in this cycle of denial, anger, bargaining, and grief. Denial, anger, bargaining, and grief. Denial, anger, bargaining, and grief, until we do nothing, because we will not accept that type of treatment. Under no circumstance will I ever allow myself, my family or my friends to accept being mistreated, period.
Mm.
And so you're stuck in a vicious cycle of acting like it didn't happen. That's a narrative. You're stuck in a cycle of being angry, and you being angry is unacceptable. That's a narrative, because you rightfully so should be angry. You having to accept bargaining. If we had done this, or if this would have happened, that's acceptable. And then we go to the grieving process and the depression process, to where, we're sad because, why did it happen to me? That's acceptable. But what's not acceptable is to accept the fact that it happened. We can't get numb to any type of racist stresses or trauma, period.
Well, Miss
Right.
Diana, I have to tell you, when we got off the call, I told him, I said, I know Miss Diana, I said, she is probably over there praying and having a full conversation with God right now. I could tell it weighed in your spirit, as it did with all of us. But to your point, we came right back. We will not stop. So I could see that it was impacting you. But I want you to know that we're here with you, and we're still committed to bringing this message forward and supporting what you're trying to do, all the way from the USA. Because we cannot let hate win. We just refuse to let hate win. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. And I've got such a strong co-host who I know, if we were able to be here, he would have held me up, which he's done from where he is. And I just want to say thank you, Scott, because it's that kind of support that allows or enables us to keep going. Because I know you've got my back, and I know that you guys have got my back, and that has what has made me put my best foot in front of the other. And I knew, as you said, Dr. Angela, spiritually God spoke to me anyway and just said, you're here. There's people here. You've got support. They've got your back. Do not hand over to them. You cannot. Everything that you're doing is evidence of why you're doing it. So on that basis, I just want to get my co-host Scotty involved in this, because he has a way with words, and he's very empowering with the subject matters that he speaks upon every other day. And he's done a video this Saturday, which is touching. It's very touching, and it's very, very, it's so important, and that's why I want to speak on it. And and he talked about everybody has been going to these peace protests and doing their part from this neck of the woods and on a global scale. But one thing that seems to resonate is, where are all those gangsters and those drillers and the ensman that we call in England, that are willing to take out another brother for less than nothing? But now that there's time for us to take a stand, they're standing way back. In fact, they're not even being seen. So I want to hand this over to Scott, and I want to ask you, Scott, what triggered your response to those group or affiliations? Because that's such a powerful moment to consider. Hold up a minute. Where are those people? So, Scotty?
I think because of my own journey, because of my own history, I know what I've done. So when we were out here, when we had the uprisings in Brixton in 87, in the early, I remember leaving from Harlesden and going over to Brixton to go and stand with the man them in Brixton who was putting in work. And because there was injustice from those times. And like, I just had to reflect on, so my kind of job I do now, I work with young people around serious youth violence, people that get harmed or shot or at risk of exploitation. And being in the hospital and seeing young men that could be my son, and when they tell me about their trauma, that it was a next man that looked like them, I was just really kind of perplexed. Why would you not come and stand with people to defend the very essence of who you are as a human being, a black person? You will strike down a next, but to defend the actual principle that you are a black man. And I just felt, where are these guys? And I don't think it's just here. When I think about across the waters in America, I've heard similar sentiments. So I know that some of the gangs in America that come together and they're demonstrating and they're marching peacefully. But for me over here, like, we've still got our differences, the postcode thing. And I'm just saying, where are all these guys? So I think it just came from me, like, where are they? Because I went on the first march. Remember the first one of mine live stream, and I said, Diane, I'm rolling out, I'm going to Trafalgar Square. This is the first. And it was kind of empty. And I said, when the time comes, who's going to be rolling out? And from then I've seen what's been really powerful is so many different people that have felt this sense of injustice have got up and been counted. And this momentum that we have now, we cannot take our foot off the pedal.
No.
Not take our foot off the pedal. But like what you said earlier, and the doctor was saying, it's the organization. You spoke earlier about different roles, and even like thinking about the Manhood Academy and what they do and how they're leading in their field. How can they get some other organizations to tap in and tag on? So that is, yes, we're separate organizations, but we're operating under one order. So there was a clique from South London a couple of years ago, and that was their name. They had different people, but their banner was one order. So when the time came for them to come together, it weren't Manhood Academy, Haim High, Diane. No, it's one order. So they knew that we was functioning as one order. And there was almost an understanding that an army works because it has different roles and people need to understand their roles. You have generals, you have foot soldiers, you have logistics, you have communications, you have supply lines. And part of the issue that I'm seeing now is that everybody wants to be a general and nobody doesn't want to take their space. This is where I'm best suited. This is my skill set. This is what I bring to the mix. So in some of those drillers, some of those, they're soldiers. We need them on the battle line with us because they've got that capacity. And that's why I asked, where are you? Because we need you, we need you there. And that's why it came about. So we have to think about the different roles. But for me, it's always a pleasure and a passion of mine to do this kind of conversation and to touch in with different people. And it's really empowering hearing people from across the pond, what they're experiencing. Because this sense, this community trauma that we're all feeling, to know that that energy has traveled oceans and that people all over. So earlier, Michelle talked about our ancestral pain. It's like that ancestral pain, what you was talking about, it's almost like I've got the knee in my neck now. We are all feeling that, and we all know now, this is what our ancestors felt, and they had to overcome, and they had to stay true and keep firm. And I'm just hoping that our foot stays on the pedal, and that the work that you're doing in bringing so many different people together, so that people can actually start communicating more effectively. So let's stop running separate groups. Let's start unifying the group so that when we're doing these FaceTime or these Zoom seminars, let's get different, or let's pool our resources so that we have an audience of 100 instead of being separate. So we have to start pushing for that. But in terms of yourself, I'm really kind of proud that you held it today, because what happened was disgusting. It was horrible. And my energy and your energy was we ain't done nothing wrong, because what you're doing is so powerful. That's why you get that negative energy. But you kept your power, you kept regal, you kept your head up, and you bounced back, and you came back stronger, because you're here now and you're holding it. And I know when we have the next meeting, the people in America, they're going to talk about Diane. The people that's here now, Manhood, Michelle, they're going to talk about this. And this is what we need. We need a platform where we put religion, where we put age, where we put all of that to one side. That's me. I'm going to jump my next meeting. I've got a meeting at 9 o'clock, and I'm going to try and get myself ready for that. But as you know, I'm always available. I'm always going to support the thing. So I'm just going to wish everyone a good evening. I don't know what time it is stateside, whether it's day or night, but just keep the energy, guys, and keep sharing this momentum. Jay, keep addressing keep that Black Lives Matters. Address the soldiers. Make them know that we got the ones that ain't got the thing yet. They still need to understand. But the more we try and educate and share platforms like this, is the more we can bring them. Actually, right now, Black Lives Matters, because we are the ones under the cosh. Yes, all life matters, but right now we need to focus on ourselves. So for everyone else, I'm going to bid you a good night. I will hopefully see you again on the...
It's got to give me 2 minutes, because it's really, I want to respond. Sorry, D, is that right, yeah? Yeah, literally, what you were talking about with where are these, soldiers that we know, should be out there. The two things, and because I want us to, me and you will chat offline, but I just want to respond to the views that I'm seeing from being relatable as well. One is, like what you said, in America, they're already putting their differences aside. The Bloods and Crips, they're coming together as one, yeah? So that, until that starts happening, we know there's a few people that we need to get, in the same reality, who I'm talking about. That's the kind of works that we have to start doing. We'll talk about that anyway. And secondly, the lack of self-love. You see, when a black man can kill another black man, what that says about self-love, he's not worried about any white person. Do you know what I mean? Like, he can't even see that, I don't even love me. So I got no time to be worrying about anyone else. You feel me? So those two things, we can work together and address, because the lack of self-love, it goes over most people's head. People don't even realize that it's a lack of self-love. Because you can't see me and have the kind of hate that you want to end me, but I look like you. So that picture is not been painted for them. So that's what we need to work on. Those two things, getting the generals to understand that nothing's going to shift on this side until they start shifting, and vice versa. And then it's getting the collective of our soldiers to start saying, yo, you don't need to like that man, but right now, he's representing you. We're on the same team. And right now, we need to be looking that way. You get it? But those two things combined, I think we can work on that. So I just wanted to share that while you're still on, because we can all start adding to that whichever way we can. But yeah, I'm doing stuff behind the scenes, bro.
Yeah, I think we will have a conversation thereafter. But what I will say is that it's always a pleasure to speak to different people and hear different voices. And Diane, I'm going to make a move, but I just wanted to say thank you again. And for the guys across the pond, I hope you guys are keeping yourself safe. And even though this is a difficult time, it's a momentous time, and it's a time that will change all of us. So be safe, guys. Be lucky. Look after, and I will catch you on the rebound. Peace.
All right.
Scott, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And I just want to say also, in terms of where we sit right now, and the contributions that have been flowing from the hearts of the speakers, we are such a loving people. We just are. We don't have hate in us. We have hurt, but I don't think we have hate. And I think the hurt has come because it was carried in our DNAs from our ancestors. And we've arrived at this stage now where we have to turn this hurt into happiness. And we are the generation that can do that. It may not look like it's going to happen, but it's going to happen. It's happening. And, you know, apartheid, I'm going to talk about apartheid because it's a global thing, as we know, ended in 1993 by a series of negotiations. So do you think that these peace protests and lootings will be our unilateral steps to negotiate for or to an end of oppression, as an opening of the floodgates for socialization, as the new united front stance for social change? Anyone like to speak on that?
I guess I can speak on that for a bit. So, I mean, with everything that's happening now, we could say that because of the type of response, we have a worldwide response from Japan, Korea, you know, UK, Germany. It's the kind of response that you've actually never seen ever.
Mm.
So we can say that essentially we have history in the making.
Absolutely.
And with that kind of response, there will definitely be some sort of change. The question is it going to be the type of change that will stop everything? And the short answer is no, because it's so far reaching, right? Because we have language that was created for us to communicate, but it ends up separating us, right? We want to be more specific, but in the end, language is used to separate people.
Mm.
Then we have, you know, media, right? And media plays a role where, you know, it can dictate people's mindsets. Then you have how people see themselves. It's so far reaching that, you know, it will definitely take generations to really unfold, but it's definitely gonna open the narrative. And in the US, Congress is already talking about a bill that is going to reduce or limit the power that police officers have. We're talking about defunding, you know, various police departments and factions, changing procedures as far as how they handle, you know, suspects. So it's definitely going to, you know, put things in the right direction. Now, the other thing that we have to think about is the fact that in, you know, the Black community overall, we have the larger scale, right? And we could talk about Africa and history in Africa and apartheid and everything. And to this day, it saddens me that there isn't more collaboration in Africa. And it all comes from the fact that there's so many different languages. Everyone wants to be the chief, everyone wants to be the leader. And Scott, you know, he touched on that before he left, and he said, hey, you know, in different communities, you have different factions that they see each other as enemies, and really we're all on the same team. But even as we come together, everyone wants to be the leader. No one wants to really have the support role. And it's okay to have a support role. If we work together and we have one goal, you win, I win, everyone wins, right? So there's nothing wrong with that. And that same kind of mindset echoes in the Americas, right? We have African Americans that I know as an African American, you have to work harder, right? Because you know that if you don't, you're competing against other people that for some reason with the same qualifications, they might, you know, have an offer that for some reason you didn't get. And it's, you know, you can't sit down and sulk about it. You just have to be strong and keep, you know, moving forward. But at the end of the day, you know, there's so many issues that have to be addressed that, you know, I can't see it being resolved in one lifetime. 400 years of oppression, you know, I can't see it just in 25, 30 years being, because within even within the social construct of Asian, right? You have Japanese that feel like they're a higher class than Chinese because they're a lighter skin tone. Within the Black community, you have lighter skin people that feel like, you know, they're better than another. In Jamaica, in Africa, you see people that bleach their skin to be lighter because it's, you know, it's perception that if you are lighter, you have better opportunities or you're treated better. And, you know, it's learned behavior, right? Even if I have my children and I teach them this and I teach them that, it's hard to shelter from everything that's coming from every direction. But I'm happy that we're having this conversation the way that we are, and the type of reaction we've never had. So all I can say is, you know, this is definitely history in the making. And I look forward to see what, you know, I guess next year brings.
Mm.
And, you know, if we keep doing these things that we're doing and we support each other like we should have been doing this whole time, I'm sure everything will, you know, be okay.
Thank you for that, cuz. You know, you said something about right now Congress are meeting and so on and so forth. And I listened to Ava DuVernay yesterday, and she spoke about, she's setting up a project called LEAP, which is the Law Enforcement Accountability Project. I don't know if you've heard of it. And I was wondering, well, she said basically it's to name and shame the police officers who have gotten away with things in the past, gone into different positions and different sectors, and nothing has happened to them. So she's bringing, you know, she's in talks right now, her and some other professionals. Maybe it could be with the same person in Congress that is pushing this project forward. So how do you feel like, if it isn't the person in Congress and that is her stance, you know, I don't know, how do you feel that will kind of have an impact, if at all? Dr. Anderson?
Which one?
Oh, sorry, Otis. Sorry.
I mean, I think that, could you repeat the question one more time?
With the fact that, you know, Ava DuVernay, she spoke about setting up this project that is to name and shame the police officers who have gotten away with murders in the past, called Law Enforcement Accountability Project.
Well, I mean, I think it's interesting that, you know, let me give you an example. When Michael Vick served more time for killing a dog than all the cops who have killed the last 493 unarmed Black men in America.
Mm,
I mean, let's just think about that.
yeah.
And so you have to have some level of accountability because, you know, just like the Florida Police Union set out an ad for the Buffalo 57 and the New York 7, stating that they can always come to Florida and work there.
So, let's give some background on that. Essentially, there was an officer in Buffalo, New York that pushed a protester down, causing his head to open and bleed. No one did anything.
He was 75 years old.
Yes, 75 years old. So they fired that police officer for his behavior, and it was on video. And when someone went to assist him, the police officer did not allow anyone to assist. When he was fired, 57 of the other police officers on that same police force, Buffalo, New York, resigned. The state of Florida then published ads to offer jobs to the 57 officers that resigned, to tell them that they could come work in the state of Florida if they wanted to do that.
And so the thing is that there's no reciprocal action. There's no discipline. There's no punishment. Yes, I can lose one job, but I can go work somewhere else without any recourse, without any training, without any intervention to assess whether bias and prejudice was, inset before you got your first job. And so we just got to do better. I mean, the thing is that just like whereas a lawyer who got accused of misconduct, he's always going to have to explain that misconduct. Police got to do the same thing. So, but unfortunately, they don't have to in the United States at this time.
That's quite scary to hear and to know. It's, I was speaking to my friend last night who's on here, Maureen, and there was something that she said to me that I'm going to throw back out there. She said she don't think, and she's in Virginia, she don't think that we could ever be truly equal in any country that is run by a white government.
Well, you got to think that, my perspective is different. As my father was a policeman for 33 and a half years. And when I was 6 or 7, he got shot. And I'm the one who answered the door at 6 o'clock in the morning with his best friend in a police car, saying, can you tell your mama, because I can't do it. Tell your mama that your dad has been shot on the force. And I went in there, with my due diligence and just told her, I said, Daddy's been shot. He's okay. He's at the hospital, but we have to get dressed and go to the hospital now. And the peculiar thing about that story is he got shot by a mental health consumer. The full circle nature of that story is the fact that not only as a third-year medical student did I assist the psychologist at the medical school with coming up with a crisis intervention training program for the police, but that very same person who shot my father was a patient of mine on my medical school rotation. I instantly knew who he was from his name recognition. And here it was, almost 20 years later, I finally asked my dad, what happened? And he basically said, I knew he was a mental health consumer. It was very cold at night. I was going to take him to the shelter, as we customarily do, and I got lax. He admitted I got lax, and I didn't check him like I was supposed to. And I knew that he had a laundry basket full of clothes, and he had all these coats. I knew he couldn't afford those coats. He said, but I gave him the benefit of the doubt because I was more so looking for his safety than my own. And so that's my patient. I'm his advocate. But in return to my father, as growing up as a young Black male in America and having my own experience and exposures to the profiling that happens on a day-to-day basis, I just had to ask him as a police officer, if your duty is protect and serve, when did it actually come for me to survive this encounter? If I know you, I have your name. I'm the third, you're a junior. If I'm expecting you to protect and serve me, when did my mindset shift for me just to survive this encounter, no matter who is pulling me over, for what reason they're pulling me over? And he couldn't answer it. He was honest, and he was like, sorry, son, but no matter what you accomplish, you can't overcome your skin. You can't overcome other people's bias based on your skin, based on your stature. And so you're 6'6", you're just not a small Black man, you're a big Black man. I said, you're automatically going to terrorize somebody based off that person's assumption, no matter how nice you are, no matter how learned you are, no matter your demeanor, they're going to automatically assume because of the systemic bias and association with who you're supposed to be, your portrayal as a manic super thug in the media. They don't care nothing about that. They don't care nothing about your white coat. They don't care about that. And so at the end of the day, carry yourself in truth and don't let that narrative define you. And so, and I appreciated him telling me, as a policeman, I appreciated him telling me that. He said, just carry yourself in truth. Don't worry about what narrative somebody said about you. And me and Dr. Anderson, we teach our girls that. Hold on to what you know is true.
Thank you for that, Dr. Anderson. That was touching to hear. Wow. I don't know. I'm just going to open up and ask anyone if they'd like to share any of their own. And Maureen, you're living in Virginia. I mean, please, let me unblock you or unmute you.
It's quite a culture shock. I didn't envisage it being such a culture shock out here, because you just think that Black people and white people are black and white wherever they are, right? You didn't expect the slight differences, those nuances that I've noted. But when I look at it, I think in a lot of ways we're no different in a lot of ways, but in some ways we are. I think our responses to our history makes us a little bit different, in the sense that, I think I discussed this with you just the other day, Diana, where I explained to you, we've got, for the people who are born in Britain, the Black people that are born in Britain, they come from predominantly either the Caribbean or Africa, okay? And so when things get a little crappy out there, we could always kind of sink into that comfortable seat of saying, well, I'm from the Caribbean, I'm from Jamaica, I'm from Grenada, I'm from Barbados, or I'm from Gambia, right? So there's always that comfort of kind of feeling, well, this ain't really my home. I've still got if they don't want me, I've still got somewhere else to go. Whereas in the United States, where it's different, is that this is their home. They can't sink into that seat the same way as we can. So for them, in some ways, I feel that the struggle here is a little bit more real. And I'm not trying to belittle the movements in the UK, but it's very real for them, because when you're here, you're Black here, you understand, when you look at the history, and you understand that for 400 plus years, okay, here we are, we're still dealing with the same crap, but this is my home. Whereas, for us in the UK, we can say, well, you know what, yeah, it's kind of my home because my kids are here and what have you, but boy, let them pay me some money. Guess where I'm going? I'm going back home. I'm going to Gambia. I'm going to Barbados. I'm going to wherever. So I think there is a difference, and I think that puts a little bit more fire in the struggle here in the United States. And that's why you have like the organization as the NAACP, which came up during the time that in the Caribbean, they were just getting their independence from the countries in Europe. So there is that slight difference. But in terms of fighting the fight, I think we have to understand that we, as Black people, are a whole. We are from Africa, we are from America, we are from the Caribbean, we are from the UK, wherever we are in the world, our seat is really in Africa, where we all came from at some point. And we have to be able to unite, to be able to, you talked about the global, how do we move globally? I think we need to get over these divisions. And history, I didn't know anything about Caribbean history going up through school. I knew nothing. I taught myself. I read and I learned. They don't teach you that in school in the UK. They don't teach you about the slave history in the UK. They don't. They've got one little museum, right? Right. okay, and then they got a next one up in Liverpool. But that's my point. There is no education for the Black people where it's worldwide education. We talk about Black history, right? Which I think is kind of a bit of a joke here, because Black history is the fundamental part of American history here. It's not, you know, it's how they moved the Native Americans off their land, and how they brought so many of us over here. You know, the largest Black population in the world is Brazil. Brazil didn't naturally have Black people. They were brought over by the Portuguese. So you've got to remember, those are our Black brothers and sisters too. Same in Mexico, they got Black people in Mexico. Those are our Black brothers and sisters too. We need to recognize that. I need to know their history, the history in Africa, all the countries in Africa, and how we come together. We need to stop being so separate. And yes, I think a global movement would be fantastic. But what happens is that everybody else starts looking for that comfortable seat again. And that's why we're back here again. This is not the first time. It's not the first time we've been out there protesting. No, it isn't. You know, are we going to be doing it again? Is what you're going to ask yourself. Are we going to be in this situation where we're going to have to protest another Black person being killed? What, 10 years from now? Now we're going to get vexed again and go out and protest? No, we need to keep that movement going. We need to get our children involved. We need to fight for education for our kids. Okay, the education here in America is white people education. The education there in Britain is white people education. So how are you educating your own Black children? How are you teaching them what should be the Black agenda? We have our own Black agenda. So why are we not teaching our children, you know, what it is actually to be Black? I know that my parents never really told me about all the stuff that they had to deal with, where they couldn't find somewhere to live. They had to go and live in one little room somewhere. And then when they bought their house, they had to rent the downstairs to pay for the mortgage, but they rented it to another Black family. And that's how Black people got along. And that was moving together. We're not doing it anymore. And we need to. I know Janira wants to speak because he's got his hand up there. Go ahead, take the...
Unmute.
Yeah, no, love, sis. I was just gonna, you know, when the batten's just right, you just want to continue from that. So credit to what you're saying, because you know, they say he who wins the war tells the story, and that's all we're dealing with. And when we as African people, because again, there's so much terminologies that are gonna bring us back to uniting, not West Indian, not African American, African people. We're one people, yeah? Every other culture knows this about us, right? So we're already speaking a dividing language when we say, oh, I'm African American. Oh, my parents from the West Indies, right? So the right, like what you just ended on, the right for our generations to know how great our story is comes from us. We keep handing our children to the people that are going to tell the story of themselves. And I don't even knock them. We have to start playing the understanding of where they are. They understand our history more than we do. They know that before they can go back to any roots, they have to go back to the Black woman. Yeah? The Black woman's the mother of all civilization. So all history starts with Black people. And the shame is that most races know this more than we do. So when we're out here complaining that, oh, the schools ain't teaching, if I was a Caucasian, would I be teaching the masses that, hold on, you know, we're actually not the superior race? So I'm saying, you know, self-worth comes from wanting to know. And that during the due diligence, we're in a time where now there's no excuses, you know? Some of the things that we can be proud of, that we could be teaching our children, we haven't even wanting to research. We bought slavery, we bought it. Okay, cool, that's it. We bought that. When, you know, there's a very clear understanding that superiority doesn't need to speak. It just is. everything that we touch, manifestation, you know, everything we do, we own. So can imagine how this feels for Caucasian people who know that them and every other, sorry, hello? Sorry. Oh, sorry, yeah. So you can imagine how this feels for Caucasian people who know this history. They know that their history starts from us. They have no will and desire to share that. So it's not for anyone but us to re-educate. You know, the conditioning is so deep that if we don't reprogram ourselves, we're going to be in the same place where we just get emotional and we react. They know us so well that we're pawns on their chessboard. And I very rarely like to speak because I want to be a pawn that you don't even know knows that I'm a king, you know? Because we can't play this game of keep getting emotional and reacting. The work is off camera. The work is not even talking, you know? And we feel better. Once we've vented, we get back to being, yes, master. You feel me? So I feel like these platforms are beautiful, but they should be, they should only be for the next step. What's the next step? Because everyone wants to say something, and in saying something, we then dilute the momentum of actually doing the research, doing the homework, doing the due diligence. And I know, Diane, you know, you're an auntie to me. We grew in the same community, you know, my whole family, and we're one. So what I'm saying is, a lot of us have to pass the baton on by first doing the work. Everyone's looking for someone else to lead them and lead their family. You know, I know that I can't be in front of the youths. I can't be wearing this hat and not knowing what I'm expecting the youths them to do. I have to be able to say, well, I did my research on that, or I'm learning this. Not, oh, go and do that, and I'm over here doing something else. You feel me? So let's bring it back to being responsible and not reactive, because we're getting too caught up in reaction, and that's going to kill us. I'm honestly afraid that we need to change that narrative. Yeah.
Awesome.
So can I jump in real quick? No, I just wanted to say it's you know, we have here in February we have Black History Month here. Okay, and I did mention that I believe it's all history, right? Because what people are trying to learn here when Black History Month comes along is about Black American history. And we really need to know, we really need to be able to look at Black history. If we're going to use the term Black history, we're talking about all Black people. And we need to stop asking white people for permission to do these things.
Come on now.
Okay? It's for us to do it. We don't need to ask them to, you know, let's make February. No, we need to get together. Black people, the Black leaders need to get together and say, okay, you know what? We're going to call Black History Month, whatever, and we're all going to participate in this. We're going to learn about each other's history. It's not just about the Black American history. That is American history that needs to be taught in the schools. So let's not confuse it. And we need to stop looking for those cues from white people, putting our hands up saying, can we, please, can we organize? Can we do? No, we have to go and do it for ourselves. I'm done.
No, you see, this is what I mean. When we get to the stage where the emotions overwhelm us because our passion becomes so deep rooted that, you know, we're tired. It's like I'm exhausted now. The talk, it's the walk.
Can I say something, please, Diana?
Z, just give me 1 minute because Dr. Angela's got to leave to go to another meeting. Do you want to unmute, Dr. Angela?
Well, I actually just got a message that it's going to be postponed, so I have a little bit more time. So
okay.
Can't get some time. Yay.
Okay, thank you. All right, Z, you can go ahead.
Okay. I just want to say, I'll be honest with you all. I did not participate in any of the marches of the weekend. I'm compelled, I'm angered by what is going on, not only in America, what's happened, weeks ago, but in general, what's been happening for my lifetime over the 41 years I've been alive on this earth. I have seen nothing but genocide and murders and assassinations of our people. I was born into a very conscious family. My full name is Nzinga Asata. So those who know the history, you'll know who Queen Nzinga of Africa is, and you'll know who Assata Shakur is. So I grew up with confidence of knowing who I am, what I am, who my people are, that I'm an African woman. Yes, we are from Jamaica, but we came on ships over there, I'm African. So as a child, growing up, I went to every march, every rally, from the Brixton riots to Birmingham, to Joy Gardner, Wilson Silcott. The list goes on. The list goes on up to my friends, Mark Duggan, Rashawn Charles, my friend's son, who was murdered savagely by the police at 20 years old. Joy Gardner, Cynthia Jarrett. I can't stop mentioning people that have been killed here, and I've sat down in talks and talks and talks and talks. I'm hearing talking, no action. And for people of my generation, we are getting a bit frustrated now because all we're doing is talking. As the brother said earlier on, there's an emotion and everyone's, oh, this is wrong and this is, and then it dies down when they hand us a carrot and give us a half-hearted sorry. How can we expect change from those who don't like us, from those who are still murdering us, when we don't have any power, when we do not have any economic power here? We're not even constructively running businesses. We don't even have banks here. We don't even have our own schools. So I want to get to a place, first of all, I want to even ask the Americans on the platform, in the history, has any police officers been made accountable? And when I say accountable, I mean, have they been charged and put in a mainstream prison for their assassination acts? I'll add into it as well, I'm an what you would call correctional officer, probation officer. I've worked in the prisons here in the UK. Never come into the prison assistance report or heard of any of my colleagues going through the probation services with them. So just on, just want to know, across the waters, has any justice ever been seen?
It's rare. It's rare. And for me, working in the prison system myself as a prison psychiatrist, it's rare. I mean, and the thing is I had 5 of the 8 prisons in the state of Mississippi, the state prisons. I remember seeing 2 cops, but they were there for other reasons. So one of them, I remember, had a DUI homicide, and the other one was there for some domestic violence stuff. So that had gotten way too out of hand, and it happened way too often. But as far as, well, the murder, no. And I only know of one case that was actually prosecuted for the Black gentleman that was shot in South Carolina. And as he was walking away, the officer shot him in the back, and it was on film. So that's like one of the one rare cases in which I've seen an actual officer indicted and prosecuted. So.
And so that's where the frustration is coming from that you see, is that there is no level of accountability. Like, you look at the most recent case with George Floyd, it was on video. The police officer knew that he was being recorded. He was making eye contact with the camera. It was deliberate. It was, I know you're not going to do anything about it, and I feel that comfortable sitting in my authority that I will commit murder on tape. That's how I feel I'm protected in this uniform. And so that was even though we've seen this play out way too many times, I think at this point, for Black people in America, we are just collectively tired at the same time. We've been tired over here, we've been tired over there, but everybody's at a point where they are just fed up. We just can't keep doing this. Like, you continue to reoffend, Yes, ma'am, Miss Diana.
No, go ahead. But when you are coming after you.
Okay.
Mm.
And so that I think has planted the seed, even with some of my colleagues who work for, major corporations who historically would have held their tongues on certain things. They're speaking out in a way I've never seen it happen before. And they are demanding change in these organizations where they've worked, for 10, 20 years and never had this conversation or never even felt comfortable having certain conversations is happening now. So it's going to be a slow process, but I'm seeing change in areas where historically I've never seen it before. And to everybody's point, it's going to have to be a collective outcry, which is what's happening right now. We can't say, oh, you guys, we're tired, so you take it on. We have to keep our foot on the gas, and we have to keep having these conversations, even when it's uncomfortable, even when people tell us they don't want to hear it. No matter what, it's the truth. So we just have to keep owning our voices and making our stories known. So
Yeah, that's it.
Can I interject as well, just very quickly? Is that okay, Diana?
Give me 1 minute, Jazz, because I think this is important that I mention this. And I don't know if you guys know this, because it came on my feed today, that the reports that the two worked together, George Floyd and the police officer that killed him. So there seems to have been some kind of vendetta from back in the days when they worked together in a club. So someone came forward and spoke out, like a mutual co-worker spoke out, saying that they bumped heads, and it has to do a lot with Derek being extremely aggressive within the club with some of the patrons, which was an issue, which is where George Floyd worked, or they worked together many years ago. So him coming back into the police force and getting that opportunity in that moment to do what he did, that was premeditated, but it's those kind of things that they strike up this immediate thought of, no matter what they do or we don't do, or we do and they don't do, they're going to get us. That's their ultimate desire. They're going to get us one way or another. And that's quite, the thought alone is quite scary to even think. But, and I will stick to this, I will maintain this statement that if we come together, should we come together, when we come together, however we're going to become this united force, we are a powerful force to be reckoned with. And we need to stop breaking down one another and start building ourselves up and being the adhesive to tackle what is happening, because we can do it. We just have to somehow, which is why I asked you, Dr. Angelo, in the beginning, like, from the clinical side of things, how would you, what advice would you give, in that, for the mental scars? But then it runs so deep that even how far we going back with that advice? Really and truly, how far would we have to go back with that advice? So it's not that it's neither.
One thing that has come up that I think is important, particularly in America, to Gennaro's point, is that our youth have lost connection with legacy. And it's up to us to make sure we have conversations with them about who and what they come from. I don't think they necessarily realize the power that they come from. And so they can't feel connected to it. And so you have all of these, youth who they feel isolated, or like their decisions only impact themselves and nobody else. And so with our girls, or when we're talking to young people, we say, you owe a debt to your ancestors, and it's your responsibility to inspire people who come after you. I think they feel like they're not connected to anything. And so to listen to your friend talk about that connection to, you know, her Caribbean ancestry or to her, you know, her African ancestry. That's something that we don't have.
No.
Like, I just saw a picture of one of my great grandparents this month for the first time ever. And it was because my family had to do research to find out who it was. How did we find out? Because the plantation where my relatives were enslaved is still operating as a historical landmark. That's how we found out, the slave registries. So we were intentionally cut off from our history, right? And it continues in the education system. And so we have to take an active role in making sure that we know where we come from and that we teach our kids the same thing. Because once they understand the power of that, it changes their outlook, right? You understand what's flowing through your veins.
Absolutely.
So we tell our kids, remember who you are, but remember who you are not. Remember who you came from. Remember the mission and the purpose, and remember who's watching. So we've got to get back to helping them understand that it's bigger than you. You had people that sacrificed before you, and they put the baton in your hand. So it's a collective mindset. Not you against everybody, it's us. Against everything that's trying to oppress us.
Jazz, before you come in, thanks, Dr. Angela. Sharon, come, and then Jazz, you can go. Sharon?
Yes. Good evening.
Hi, darling. Good evening.
Hi, Di.
Hi, darling.
Firstly, I'd just like to say, may the best of your past be the worst of your future.
Wow.
Yeah? Because things can only get better in life. And where there is life, there is hope. I'm going to just take it back to the basics. I was born in the 60s, after 65, in fact. Yeah? And when our parents came over to England from the West Indies, there was a thing called partner. Yeah? Now, with our parents coming over, they got together as a people. They didn't all know each other, but they entrusted their money with one person. And it was a great sum of money where there was a saving. So where we didn't have a black bank, there would be individuals who was doing a partner, taking money from people. And that was where the community and trust was held. Yeah? Now, along the way, it got broken down. That was where the togetherness was. We talk about history, but for me and each of us are individuals, but every day is history. And it depends on what we do
that time
each day. For me, I think that there are a lot of us as Black people that act and behave inferior, when we must know that we are superior, regardless of how society and those who think they're more superior try to make us feel. But I think it just boils down to an individual and life experiences. And the other thing is having the right Black people in the right places. Because you can have Black people, you say, oh yeah, there's a Black man in a position, there's a Black woman in a position, but you've got to have the right Black people in the right places. And along the way, it's been broken down. And I think we should have more faith within ourselves and, you know, just accept ourselves a bit more. You know, we speak about we've been broken down. We all know what's happened in history. But it's looking at ourselves and knowing what's happening and knowing what has happened, where you can only do for yourself first before you can do for others. And it's that building of yourself where you have that strength to move on to somebody else. And that was all I wanted to say, actually, whether it made sense or not.
That's a lot, Shao, and it's been well received. It's been well received. Thank you for that. Thank you so much.
Sorry, I hasten to add. I watched something the other day with Al Sharpton and this Matt Gates, and you can see where you have that control. We have that control as people, because white people become frustrated very quickly and very easily when they find that they're trying to make you frustrated. Yeah, it makes me laugh actually. But in watching that, Al Sharpton had to turn to the man interviewing him, the Matt Gates, and said to him, calm down, you've got to act professional. And we just need to realize the strength we have. It doesn't matter how they're going to look at us, because they've always looked at us this way, whatever way they look at us. Yeah. And it's their inferiority that should encourage us and help us to build our strength. And, you know, to be quite honest, I think people talk down about the youths too much. But the youths are like babies. When a baby falls down, that baby gets up without knowing that baby's going to fall down or maybe knock its head or do whatever. But it gets back up once it's fallen down. And, you know, we're going to rise again, and we're still rising. But we just have to be more sure of ourselves as a people and come together as a people and have more confidence with ourselves, because it's a shame to see what's going on in the world. It's not just now. And what saddened me the other day is when you look at these women and these men, like the man in the wheelchair at George Floyd's funeral. He's already gone through it. And now he's still going through it. And his words were profound in what he was saying, in terms of, you know, as a people, we stick together. And this is where the journey is, and it's a continuous journey. Yeah, anyway, that's it. Yeah.
No, thank you, Shao. And we're so passionate about change, and that's why we want to speak, because we don't know, it's the only time we get to say what it is we've said. So I commend you and I admire you, because whichever way we can have an outlet, let's just use it. Yeah. Let's just use it and run with it. This is a baton. This platform is a baton. Yeah. So thank you. Your words have been well received, and I just want to say thank you for that. Jasmine, I know you want to say something, but Al, is your hand up to say something, sir, or is that a high five?
Ouch.
Yes, I would like to have an opportunity to say something. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can, sir. I can.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for the courage to stand up and try to make something happen. I want to give you guys a little bit about what's going on here. For those who don't know me, I'm Maureen's husband, and she came here, I guess, in 2005, and I don't speak with the beautiful Queen's English that you guys all have, so I won't be as eloquent in my speech. But I will say this: we are one people, and we have one color, and it's black. We have too long divided ourselves, and if there is going to be a global message, the global message needs to be consistent with the blackness, not the separatist ways that we've formed over many, many, many years. Someone made a comment that it was 400 plus years now, and we are not going to fix this overnight. But I want to challenge everyone who is listening. If we wouldn't stand for slavery today, why would we stand for the inequalities and the injustices that are happening right now? So the young people that are out there on the streets, they're creating something. They're creating this awareness. But there's something that's greater missing in the United States. Again, I can't speak for England when I say this here. The problem, and I'm going to talk about the dance after the problem. The problem is deep-rooted in the Constitution of the United States. So I actually believe that this is a Band-Aid that we're using right now in the United States by protesting and marching. And I say that because without fixing the Constitution, we do not fix the problem. And again, our Constitution clearly states that we were, I think, 3/5 of a human. And then they've written in these amendments. There are hundreds of amendments today, but in particular, I think it's either the 13th or 15th, our voting right. For those who don't know, our voting status in this country as Black people is a temporary status. So at any given time, if they choose, and this becomes a civil unrested predicament, they control the money and they control more of the arms than we do. And I don't want the young people to stop using their voice and put this into put action behind it. Our generation need to get behind them the best way we can and provide clear direction and some knowledge. I think Black Lives Matter is a phenomenal platform, but I'm also going to tell you about the dance. We started dancing this weekend. And the dance is not a sweet dance. It sounds sweet. But the dance, and this is me and Philip talked about this yesterday, the dance is a romantic dance that allows the white people or the people of authority to now look at us and think we got them. Because without changing the Constitution, they do have us. And so the dance is very, very clear right now. If we're not, and by the way, let me back up and say, I am not for looting. I am not for vandalism. I don't support any of that. But at some point, in some ways, there's an action greater than our voice that needs to be demonstrated. It's not just in voice alone. And when I tell you we're dancing right now, when it was violent, when it was kind of crazy, not this past weekend, but the first weekend after George Floyd's, what I tell people, it's a modern day lynching right on the streets. So they lynched a man in front of everyone. But when we get beyond what happened and we look into where we are right now, we started dancing and they think we're comfortable. We lose the battle because we're definitely in a battle. It's a race war for equality and for justice. And if you have to think about us, our generation, 60s, some maybe a little older, some maybe a little bit younger. If you asked us today, would we want to be slaves, or how would you be as a slave today? And you'd fight with everything you have. You'd put everything into not being a slave, knowing what freedom tastes like. So I just ask everyone, if there's going to be change, it needs to come as a global positioning that Black people around the world start uniting to understand that we are more powerful. Look, the white Europeans only across the world are less than 10% of the global population, and they control 90% of the financial resources. And so they control the destiny that lies in front of us right now. But collectively, if we can figure a way to get support and find a way to support each other, support Black businesses, support Black products, Black services, educate each other, that being the consistent message, then we can start seeing change. But it will take a long time. It's beyond our lifetime. But we are part of the new revolution. The new history is happening right now. We have to figure out a way to see it through. I don't have any problem trying to help organize and put this together. That's something I do as what I would say a serial entrepreneur. But I can't always deliver the finished product. And we need to be able to find some young folks that are willing to help deliver the message and help us get this to the end. So that's all I have to say. If anybody wants to comment, that's all up to them.
Can I ask you, Al, in terms of that stance, right? And how can we, when I speak to you off camera about that, yeah, with yourself and Phil?
Sure.
Yeah?
Sure.
Okay, great. Jasmine? Where's Jasmine? Is she here? She's not here. Jasmine?
I can't hear you. The line is really bad.
You wanted to say something? All right, Kenrick, can you hear me?
I wanted to say something,
Yes,
but
I can hear you.
the line is really, really. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. It's kind of echoing what has already been said, but first and foremost, those officers who murdered George Floyd, they came with an intention to kill, steal, and destroy, and that's what they did. Now, I want to talk about us as a race, okay? I don't know if this is going to make any sense to anybody, but I've been having this conversation in my head for a while. And first and foremost, self-love is necessary in our race. For over 400 years of slavery and mental slavery in today's life as well. When Bob Marley had stated to emancipate ourselves, but I don't really think we understood, plus the millennials didn't really understand the concept of that. But as Black people, there is likes and dislikes among our own community related to color. So the color, your color depicts how high or the standard that you are. We need to address these things. Solidarity is key. As our Asian and Jewish counterparts, they have a collective workmanship. Freedom will not happen overnight. It's our strength, courage, and ability for forth planning. And that means solidarity. Solidarity we have to stand in, regardless of what. We need to stand firm. We have to learn to love ourselves, because everything starts from inside out. Now, when we reflect love on the inside, our counterparts will learn to love us. Now, my question, I always had a question, and this is to our white counterparts. What have I done to you for you to dislike me? If I cut myself and if you cut yourself, we bleed the same. So what is it? How have I hurt you? How have I disgraced you? Because you see, we can all be talking here, but we need to have a solution. Now, the thing is, because we've been enslaved for so many years, the answer is not going to come overnight. It's a planning, it's procedures and planning, putting things into place. But George Floyd, he died for a purpose. He died a hero. He didn't even know this was going to happen, but he died a hero, but he was selected to die for all of this to happen. Now, this is history already. So I can only say that we need to stand together to form a united front. And that doesn't mean fighting our fellow Blacks. It means showing your fellow person who, is a bit angry. Try to sit down and reason. Let's reason our way through things, because our counterparts are wanting us to react.
Yeah.
We have our PM, Boris Johnson. There is what's his name with the president of America, Trump. They have joined hands because they don't care about their people. They have no care, but we have to have the care for ourselves. It starts within. So I can only say, let's start to find a solution. It's important. It's not going to happen overnight, but as I said, it's all in preparation. And that's all I've got to say.
Well said. Well said, Jasmine. And I know, Jay, I can see you got your hand up there, and I knew that this topic would be, it would require more than just the time that we've been given. Am I Can I be heard?
Mhm.
Yeah, no, okay. Dr. Kenrick, you got your hand up, and then I'll go to you, Jay.
All right. So, you know, we talk about solidarity, and also about history, right? And what I'm realizing is that when it comes to education and, you know, how people see themselves over time, as we lose ourselves through the loss of family history, people start to disown who they are. So, for example, you know, someone mentioned Mexicans and Brazil, right? Brazil having the highest percentage of blacks in the world. And they don't see themselves as African or black or Puerto Ricans.
No, they don't.
Or Mexicans. And so at the end of the day, people that are, you know, African American, you know, the purest, are the only ones that take the burden.
Mm.
And so when we fight and we try to, you know, voice our opinions and we're frustrated, you know, we talked about that comfort, the comfort seat, right? And I'm guilty of it too, because I was born in Jamaica, and sometimes something happens and I feel like, oh, you know what, I'm Jamaican, right? And I feel like if we could somehow find a way to educate the Hispanic community, that they would then realize that, hey, you know what, we're actually African too. This actually is about us too. And in the US, the population of African Americans is about 12%. And at 12%, you could say, well, you know, that's a pretty small part of the pie. And there are people that, you know, they see us and they say, oh, you know, we understand and we hear you and everything. But when you don't feel like you're a part of it, it's a completely different thing. And education alone could bring us to a place where, hey, you know what? All right, the Hispanic community to say, hey, you know, we're actually black too. And there are plenty of Hispanics in high power, as well as, you know, African Americans. And I feel like that would help as far as solidarity. And, you know, I guess it really is up to us to take the horns and not just say, hey, February is Black History Month, right? And we can educate our fellow Caribbeans and say, hey, well, you know, the Puerto Ricans or the Brazilians or the Jamaicans or the Haitians or the Dominicans, we're all from Africa. And let's work together. And I feel like that if we could accomplish that, that would probably have the biggest impact. Because then we have a bigger voice. We have a broader spirit.
We do indeed. We do indeed, Dr. Kenrick. Thank you very much for that. And, you know, well, Dr. Kenrick is my cousin, and our history is quite diluted because our grandparents are Chinese. So that, you know, where do we go from there? You know, but I thought he was going to say something, and this is it. And you're, oh,
Can you hear me? Hello.
it's somebody. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, Diana, can you hear me?
Yes, Al.
Yes, yes. There was one last point. I am so sorry. A little bit of distraction on my end. As far as Black Lives Matter, the organization, I think that there's great power in the numbers that they have right now. My concern, and I hope I'm not going too far off stray when I say this, and hopefully I'm not going to offend anyone on this call. It's not my intention, we also need to look at our own selves and look at the problem of Black crime.
That's correct.
We have a major problem not being able to recognize that when that 5-year-old child is killed in a drive-by shooting, or that 15-year is shot because there's some, we did this to ourselves. We need to figure out a very strong message that we will stand and protest against Black on Black. If we have a unified support, we need to stop killing ourselves and start building one another.
Yeah.
There's a
That's
lot
the
of
point
reasons
I'd
why this
mentioned.
stuff happens.
That's the point I'd
But we
mentioned. Yeah.
Yeah, I might have missed it. I apologize. But we need to see where we are right now, because even if we get this Band-Aid, because right now it's only going to be a Band-Aid until we can literally change legislation, we change constitutional law. That's when things become far more powerful. But while we're in the midst of changing it, this crazy, there was a post this week, and it's real news. Chicago had 18 people die or murdered, homicides. That was a record for the weekend. In the midst of everything else, you've got a global pandemic. You've got civil rights actions going all over the world, but still inside the cities in America, we're killing one another. Now, there's probably some white people killed in there also. I'm not, white people kill white people kill Black people kill Black people. We need to focus on Black on Black. And that story, that message needs to resonate, that we're better than that. And that's what I mean by that. When I was speaking of that dance means after the Black lives, maybe they get a few things done, but the continuation has to be, we need to stand against Black on Black crime. Just as well, we need to organize, be enthusiastic, and be deliberate in our intentions to not allow this behavior to be acceptable. We've stood too long to say it's acceptable. It happens, and such and such's baby, dies, or such and such's, nephew or niece dies. We have to stop killing each other. I don't have anything else to say.
Before you come on, thank you, Al. That was so imperative. We've got someone from Chicago. Troy, can you hear me? I hope you're able to contribute to this platform. I'm hoping you can. I know I can see you there. He's our Chicago rep. Let me see. Troy?
Hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, just about.
Okay, hopefully that sounds okay.
Yeah.
I've been kind of in and out, but I appreciate the opportunity to jump on and sending you all greetings and positive energy from Chicago. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get to hear a good deal of the conversation, so forgive me if I repeat anything. I work in primarily the media space, so one of the things that I was hearing that I just really wanted to reiterate is the way that we view ourselves. I really believe that it all definitely starts in the mind. And that a lot of time that starts with propaganda. One of my mentors, a gentleman by the name of Tom Burrell, founder of Burrell Communications, has a really great book called Brainwash. And I think a lot of the things that we're seeing are symptoms because of the way we view one another and the way we allow others to view us. As a brother just mentioned, we're dealing with a ton of Band-Aids. And I know that we definitely need systemic change. And the areas in which that we really try to focus on with my company is just what type of media and content goes out. How do we retrain the way, or reprogram the way we view ourselves? What makes a Black man so scary to others? Where does that come from? And of course, we can do our studies and find where a lot of that propaganda comes from. But the main thing that I just want to say is, we're just looking to see what can we do, what part can we play in the larger dynamic of things. I am in Chicago, which I'm sure you've heard all the stories about the city that I'm in. Anytime I travel, I hear the questions, is Chicago really the way that it is? There are pockets in Chicago, good and bad pockets, just like anywhere else. A lot of the violence that most hear about is really relegated to a few neighborhoods, but it is presented as though it's a citywide thing. Even with that, you know, those are still areas in which we need to do as much as possible to take care of ourselves, take care of our own communities, and really know our own value. And I really believe that starts with the messages, the communications, the media, the things that are in textbooks, the things that are in the news. What are we telling ourselves? So again, forgive me if I repeated anything that someone else has said. I just wanted to, I'm just glad I was able to say that small part.
And that small part, Troy, has been greatly received, and I thank you for that, because I know that you said that you're doing your recordings and so on and so forth, and I'm really mindful. And I know, Janira, you want to say something again, but I'm looking at the time, and I know this topic we could go on for hours because it's entrenched in our DNA, and we want to be vocal. We want to take a stand. We want change to happen now. It is happening now in this time and moment. Things are happening behind the scenes, in front of the camera, and we are the change. This conversation is change. It's definitely change in the moment. And I want to say, because I love scripture, because scripture is so relevant to the end times, and I'm not afraid of the revelations that I'm seeing presenting itself in the way the world is right now. And we have to focus on the way the world is right now. And I want to throw in a very key, but based off the back of what we spoke about, our children not knowing where they're coming from. And I think sometimes it's sad to know that they don't, but sometimes where we sit right now, they will not be tainted by the secrets that have been the weight upon us. And there's a scripture that says, it's to do with the wise and the prudent. What is revealed to the, something to do with the wise and the prudent is hidden, is revealed to the babes and the suckling. Yeah. And those generations who were the alleged wise and prudent, the babies that we're seeing now are the wise, because they're coming forward, and they don't have that. You see, I'm not saying that they don't love, but their political stance is different to ours, because we've heard the generational stories of our ancestors where they haven't. I think it can be seen as a light at the end of the tunnel for them, because they're like their whole moral compass is they've got an attitude about why they are taking this standpoint right now. And I know I'm going to have to go into a different platform with what it is I'm trying to say, but the point I'm making is, with the children that we're moving forward with now, they will be doing a lot of things for us in terms of the way we see the world at large right now. So I just want to try and wrap up today by saying this, or reading this, right? In his work as a Black protest leader, W.E.B. Du Bois believed social change would be accomplished only through agitation and protest. And he prompted this view in his writings, and he urged his readers to see beauty in Black. In one of his quotes, he writes, "If there is anybody in this land who thoroughly believes that the meek shall inherit the earth, they have not often let their presence be known." Now, everybody who has spoken on today's platform has given an account and given examples of the way their presence is being felt and known and heard. And we know that that's a scripture that can be found in Matthew 5:5, where it said, "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth." Now, it's fair to say that Black people are meek, we are quiet, we are gentle, and easily imposed on people in the human race. And with what's going on right now, you know, we have displayed for hundreds of years and demonstrated meekness, and it's time now to take it to another level. So today we still feel the same way about taking a stand for the many lives that have been lost, but most importantly, the lives that are still here, that we hope we can save by any means necessary. So I just want to say, with thanks to our guests that have joined us across the big pond, Dr. Angela, Dr. Otis, Dr. Kenrick, my family, my good friend Maureen, who had left London to go and live in Virginia, Al and Phil Thompson from the president, acting president from the NAACP, Troy from Chicago, our Chicago rep, and everyone else, Janiro from Manhood Academy UK, repping for the UK, and everyone else, Trisha, Brew, Sean, Gemini, Jasmine, my good friend Clive, everyone, Janet, that I can see, my good friend Sharon, and anyone else who has joined us from the old platform to the new. I just want to say today's been very informative, to say the least, and there is light at the end of the tunnel for socialization on all levels. And you know, my co-host Scott had to leave us, but in his absence, I just want to say to everybody how having him by my side has been, he's been like a rock, especially today when what happened on the previous platforms, which a lot of people don't know about. I don't even want to talk about it. I'm not even going to give it no energy or no life. But I just want to say that it's that kind of performance that makes us powerful, when people step in like that to comfort you in a situation, what happened before. And that is the type of people that I want around me. And I know I've got from Dr. Angela, Dr. Otis, my cousin Kenrick, all of you here have supported me because you came back. And that's what that social change is about. Coming back, and let's put our best foot forward, and knowing that we've got something to do, and this is the opportunity to do it. And we managed to successfully bring this platform to another platform, get it to the end, which is something that many people, because of the challenges, they abort the process because it's too much, you know. And by the strength of God that I know that has given me that courage to come through to the end, because this ain't man's plan. This is God's plans for me to do this platform. So I know that he provided for me in that moment direction to keep this going. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who enrolled themselves again to be a part of this platform, because a lot has come from today that wasn't written in the content, which I guess the enemy tried to rob, steal, and destroy. But they didn't win. We stand in victory. Stand in victory. Clive, I can see you waving there. Do you want to say something?
4 lines, Diane.
Go for it.
If the spirit of many in body, but one in mind, prevails among the people, they will achieve all their goals. Whereas if one in body, but
different in mind, they can achieve nothing remarkable. So we are many in body, but one in mind.
Absolutely. I just want everyone to just give themselves a round of applause. Yeah, I really do. Yes. And I'm sorry, did someone want to say something?
We are all important here. Everything that was said is so valid, so key, so precious. And once again, I said this in previous Zoom meetings, that it's a feast, and we are eating from that feast. So let's continue to stand in solidarity, and definitely a round of applause to everybody.
Definitely.
Diane?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I typed in a few solutions that I think we can all take on in our own little circles and whatnot.
I see you, Jay.
Yeah.
Those solutions, my darling, we will definitely use for another platform. And I will bring you back and you can expand.
Yeah, we need a part 2.
We definitely do need a part 2 because so many people, I couldn't get the link out in time. So I just want to ask my dear new family from across the pond, Dr. Angela, Dr. Otis, Troy, Maureen, I know Maureen and Al's got my back, so you're coming back anyway. And let Dr. Phil know as well. Because if you all could welcome me back on this platform, I'll say at your earliest convenience, but we can work out the time where Scott will be able to be here and also John Claude. Yeah?
Absolutely. And I just wanted to say this because it started out very heavy and we've shed a lot today, right? We were carrying a lot of things. And so I just want to say to everybody that's on here that we love you all the way from the US, and wanted to just send you as much positivity, hugs if we could give them, but just thank you all for everything that you're doing in your areas, wherever you are. It's going to take all of us, but I just wanted everybody on here to hear that you are loved. You are loved. And so,
what do we do, Dr. Angela? Dr. Angela.
Yes, we give virtual hugs. We give virtual hugs.
Yes. And just thank you once again. We stood tall, we passed the test, and I just want to say thank you. Troy, did you want to say something before you go?
I just wanted to say I'm grateful to be a part of it. Thanks a lot for inviting me. I appreciate that. And look forward to the next step.
Excellent, and I thank you for accepting the invitation, most importantly, because it couldn't have happened if you weren't open to receive, and that's what makes these things possible, the opening to receive. All right, so thank you so much. I bid you all a fantastic rest of the week, and it's love from me and my host who ain't there, but I know they mean well and they want to extend their gratitude as well. So be safe, be humble, be grateful, stay prayed up, and know that it's all love. It's all love. God is love. All right, take care.
Love.
Thank you, sis. Love you too. Bye, Zig.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.